You're listening to the Night Demon Network. Go to nightdemon.net/subscriber to unlock more exclusive content.
Every weeknight, it's Buzz After Dark.
You like that?
With Eric Steele.
Hang out with me Monday through Friday from 7 to midnight for the Buzz After Dark. It's kind of like the Titanic, except instead of 3 hours to sink, it takes 5 hours.
Freaks come out at night, that's for sure. The Buzz After Dark. After Dark.
All night long.
Awesome tunes, clothing optional.
Hope you enjoyed the ride.
Weeknight 7 to midnight on 102.9 The Buzz. Bill's Rock Station.
Night Demon fans and friends, we are calling upon you to get Welcome to the Night added to rotation on 102.9 The Buzz. Text the Buzz hotline at area code 615-399-1029 to request Night Demon's Welcome to the Night. That's area code 615-399-1029. You know what to do.
Hello, and welcome to the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast. I'm your host, Nesbitt. So I thought this would be a pretty simple episode. I picked what I think is an underrated song on the second side of Curse of the Damned, and I figured it would be a pretty straightforward song breakdown until I interviewed the band about it. There's a lot more to this song than I initially thought, a whole lot more, including a near-death experience for the band. We'll get into it all. This is episode number 31, Run for Your Life. So Run for Your Life, track 9 from the Curse of the Damned album, which came out in 2015. But this song predates that album by a few years, and it has a pretty long history. Here's Jarvis Leatherby.
The song basically started in its origins from a guitar riff. Like most of our songs, and like most rock or heavy metal songs, it all just kind of starts from a riff. So Brent had this riff, that's kind of all he had. He came in with that, and I thought that's super awesome. It's kind of like it's got a little bit of a southern rock vibe. I don't know. I don't want to say southern rock, but again, it's got that new wave of British heavy metal meets Thin Lizzy meets maybe like the best Molly Hatchet riff of all time. But he kind of had that, and from there, I've kind of helped refine the riff and put all the inflections on the transitions of it and the tails on it and stuff, because that's pretty much all that it was. And that was kind of how it was a lot in the early days. If Brent had a riff idea, they were never fully fleshed out. They were just kind of small riffs here and there. And the great thing is that we would get together and he would show it to me, and then I'd start playing off of it and then come up with a more interesting tail end to it, or a transition, or some kind of melody to put under it to make it go somewhere. And so that was kind of the magical combination that we had together in the early days writing songs. The origins of playing the song go as far back to, I believe, May of 2013. And at this point, I mean, our EP, I think, I don't even know if it was out yet. I think it was coming out that summer. And we just had to fill sets with songs. So we started playing, obviously, the first 4 songs off the EP at shows. And then we started adding a lot of covers in there to fill that. But once we started writing more original songs and kind of decided that we wanted to do another record and to be a real band, that's when these things started to happen. So Run for Your Life was one of those early songs. And at the time, I mean, like I said, we didn't really have a strong fan base, and we didn't have any music out. So there was really nothing to lose by going out and trying stuff. And I didn't really have lyrics for the song. I kind of knew the title. And actually, the title that I had was called Run for Your Lives, plural.
You guys doing all right out there, yeah? Come on, man. We're working hard for you up here. You guys doing all right out there? Fuck yeah, that's right. Here's a new song we've been working on for the last week. This song is called Run for Your Lives.
I remember one of our favorite bands, Riot, they had a song in the early era, which we love, called Run for Your Life. And in the power metal era of that band, they had a song called Run for Your Life. It's crazy. I think they're probably the only band that I know of, at least, that has 2 songs in their discography with the same title. It's pretty crazy when you think about it. But hey, that's what's cool about them, and it's definitely a first. Anyway, I digress. So Run for Your Lives was the title. And I used to kind of just, at practice, just kind of riff off melodies while we were playing the song. I mean, I think that's how it is. The song usually starts with a riff, and then you form the whole song musically, and then you get in there and start singing, and you come up with vocal melodies. And the lyrics usually come last. So that's what we were doing when we were rehearsing the song. So when we would go play live and play the song, I would just kind of sing whatever words. I had the chorus already kind of set, and John Crear, our drummer at the time, was singing the For Your Life, the backup parts live at the time, which I thought was really fucking awesome. So we kind of had that worked out, but like I said, the lyrics in the verse weren't totally fleshed out. I guess it really doesn't matter when you're playing a house party or you're playing at a small bar where, that has a shitty PA where your band's louder than the vocals anyway. And again, nobody expected anything, so there was no harm in trying that out. But that was the origins of the song there.
So that live version is from Los Angeles, from a show May 7th, 2013, with Brent Woodward, Jarvis Leatherby, and John Crear. The song is about a week old, and you can hear that the lyrics are not really completed at all. But Brent Woodward's killer riff, it's pretty much been fleshed out into a pretty awesome song. Run for your lives at that point. And there's video of it in the subscriber section on nightdemon.net if you want to see video of what is the first ever performance of the song in front of an audience. It's pretty cool to see the song in that early stage and seeing the audience react to it. Here's Armand and Dusty.
For me, it was one of those just feel good. It's got a good riff, tap your toes, just a groovy little jam. I actually enjoy playing that song a lot. The riff's fun, man. It's really fun to play. And just the whole kind of bounce vibe to that song, it's a good feel. I like it. I know the guys, it's not something that we play very often. It's kind of a back burner, but I think it's a kind of a fan favorite. There's some diehards that really love that song because I know that we'll get requests for that, when we're in certain places, especially I think in like Cleveland, places like that.
Yeah, Run for Your Life has a new wave of British heavy metal vibe, I think because of the triplets, because of the swing, because of the riff, because of the vocals, song structure. It's really to the point. It's got a lot of power. The accents are all very cool. The song's well thought out and well written.
Yeah, definitely a new wave of British heavy metal vibe on this song. But I would pretty much say that about all of the early Night Demon tracks. I think more than anything, there's kind of a Thin Lizzy vibe to the song. And when we wrote the song, that's what I was thinking. It's got this swing to it that while some new wave of British heavy metal does have that, this definitely has that kind of swing in the pocket on the drums.
And the song's really cut and dry. It's to the point, but it's a good groove. It's got that swing. I think that's what gives it that classic feel, is that swing. It's not shuffling, but it's swinging. And you gotta kind of play that song that way, and I think that what's cool about being a part of this traditional scene is that the drummers know how to swing and they can play those grooves that way, which I think is pretty cool because it's not so straightforward and mechanical and like new metal sounding or heavy metal in that sense of like where it's really easy and wide open. To have that swing feel and to keep it old school like that and to only play what it calls for, I think that's what makes that song unique and fun to play.
If I was going to compare it to any kind of new wave or British heavy metal, I would almost compare it to Running Free off the first Iron Maiden record, especially if you listen to the demo of the song. On the third verse where the guitar solo is, we hadn't put any solos down on the demo, and it's kind of funny. Even the tones that we got in the practice room there, it's just, to me, it's just dunk 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 dunk. It's just got that driving. It's got that driving vibe to it, but it's also got this swing to it. It definitely sounds a lot different when played by John and played by Dustin. Rhythmically, it's the same parts, but there's just a different vibe. I think Dustin had more swing to it, and John put a much more straightforward punk rock approach to it. And that's kind of what reminds me of Running Free. When Dustin does it, it's a lot more Thin Lizzy-ish. And I honestly love both versions and both ways of doing it.
All hail, Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast listeners. This is Dusty Squires chiming in to tell you about my brand new signature sticks from the London Drumstick Company. I've dreamt of having my very own drumsticks ever since I was a wee lad, and LDC made that a possibility for me. Founded in 2016 in London, England, the birthplace of heavy metal, the London Drumstick Company has trailblazed a path through the music industry and taken the drummer world by storm. When I met them for the first time, they knew their product was going to withstand the beatings of a Night Demon show. They took the time to work with me on getting everything just right. The balance and weight of my sticks are the same no matter what, and the durability is bar none the best I've ever had. I know my sticks will last through the set night after night. I'm truly honored to work with a company that caters to their players the way LDC does. Their innovation and attention to detail is what separates them from the rest of the stick makers out there. Their custom stick sleeves are unbelievable and really make the entire presentation complete. Wait until you see the design they came up with for me. It blew my mind and was a surprise to say the least. They have all kinds of amazing swag, including hoodies, t-shirts, drummer shorts, drum keys, stick bags, towels, face masks, practice pads, and much, much more. Even if you're not a drummer, you can be a part of Demon history and order my brand new signature sticks direct from their website. How cool is that? And to top it off, the London Drumstick Company are giving an exclusive offer to the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast listeners. Go to londondrumsticks.co.uk and receive a 15% store-wide discount using promo code DEMONSTICKS. All capital letters, no spaces, Demon Sticks. DEMONSTICKS. I can't thank everyone there enough for the opportunity to be a part of their family and for them trusting me with their amazing products. See you metal maniacs on the road very soon. And yes, the wood chips will be flying.
When I joined the band, I think they'd only had maybe like 30 shows total in the whole existence and all of that. So when I joined, the band was pretty infant, and for me being such a top 40 and hair metal fan, I honestly, I knew the bigger bands that came out of the new wave of British heavy metal scene, and I remember watching a bunch of Metallica stuff and hearing Lars talk about like Tigers of Pantang and Raven and Angel Witch and Deep Purple kind of got him started on that, but then the whole new wave of British heavy metal kind of started to take shape. Out of that came Night Demon and also the other bands that were doing the traditional heavy metal. For some reason, there was a resurgence in this style of metal, probably out of people just being tired of new metal or black metal, death metal, grindcore, stuff that you would see at shows. Anytime you say you're in a metal band, I think everybody just associates with the fact that you're going to go up there and scream. So anytime I describe what our band sounds like, I'm like, well, it's like Iron Maiden or Motorhead, but, we have good vocals, no screaming. They're like, oh, you guys don't scream? Well, that sounds refreshing. So I think that that's really where, maybe the whole traditional scene started to come through, was that people were tired of bands that just go up there and scream. I don't really mind being labeled as a new wave of traditional heavy metal band. Well, when we first started, Night Demon, we didn't know anybody. And I remember Jarvis saying one day at a show that we played at the Riff House in LA, which, was one of my first shows. And I showed up and there was kids everywhere, looking like they were straight out of the 80s. It was unreal because I had been in the band New Liberty before and we were trying to create a scene. And here I am in this new band And we're showing up to the gig, and there's actually people there that look like, they got their vests on with all their patches, and they're rocking out, and they're having a good time. And there's actually a lot of kids there. So it was really, really cool to see that. And Jarvis said, I'm going to know everybody in this scene in no time at all. And he was right. And, now we're kind of like one of the bands at the top of this scene because of kind of infiltrating it and, the Frost and Fire Festival, bringing bands together. We weren't going to go out there and say, we just want to, obviously when we play shows, we go out to destroy the stage and room every single time. But along with that comes a sense of camaraderie and a sense of community and wanting to bring all the bands together. Instead of hating the bands that you're playing with, we really enjoy the time that we spend with the bands and really getting to know them, like the guys in Ex Mortis, because they were doing a lot of the booking at the Riff House and stuff like that. So, you start to create a bond with these guys, and at some point, some of these bands that are some of our good friends now wanted nothing to do with us. So it was a little bit of an uphill struggle and battle, but once we got into the mix and once we started playing shows, I think with our mentality and our approach and what we bring to the table live, we gain the respect of these bands that we call good friends now. So it's really neat how we started with nothing and where we are now in this scene. And I feel like people would put us up at the top of the new wave of traditional heavy metal scene, which I think is really cool. So exactly what Jarvis said he was going to do, he did, and we did. So I don't mind it. I don't mind being fit into this genre or scene because I respect the scene. I respect the bands that are in it. I just don't like the fact that it can totally just like pigeonhole you and stick you in this genre, and that's the end all be all, because it really isn't. It is what it is. We have a throwback style sound, but we keep it fresh, and that's how we're able to be a popular band in this genre, is because we're not just a Tigers of Pantang rip off, or we're not just a Raven sounding band. We're not a bunch of phonies going up there and, trying to make it look like we're this kind of band, and we don't dress like we're from 1980 like a lot of bands do. We dress in all black, and that just keeps it simple. We're not going out in acid wash jeans and wearing battle vests on stage and drinking beers on stage and just, party animals. We take it seriously and we keep pushing forward. So, I know what the idea of the band was when it first started, but the idea of what the band is now after everything, I don't necessarily want to say that we're just a traditional style band. I think we've progressed quite a bit, even with our new songs, where it's got those elements, but it's not just this or that. So it is what it is. We just keep writing, and it's still going to be Night Demon any way you look at it.
I mean, I think our sound has evolved in a lot of ways since this track. This song came out on the Curse of the Damned album in 2015, which was our first full length. So to the public, there were really only 4 other original songs that were ever heard before this on record, besides the fact that we were playing some of these songs live before that record came out. But this was definitely one of the earlier songs from Curse of the Damned that we started putting into the set. I would say this would probably be maybe the 7th or 8th song that we ever wrote as a band.
I think that was kind of that song to me probably would have fit better on the first EP, maybe. I think it was kind of a leftover from that time. I mean, I know it wasn't that much further after it, but and I wasn't there for the writing of it or anything, but that's my thought with that.
But the biggest takeaway as far as the evolution musically from Night Demon since this song, I mean, you really have to take into account that when this song was written, there was a different guitar player and a different drummer in this band. So that's going to take things to a whole different direction altogether. Looking back on it, I mean, it's funny. You kind of look at the past sometimes with rose-tinted glasses, even in the elementary phases of things. But, I mean, it's a really good nostalgic feeling to look back on this, even though, I mean, I guess it really wasn't that long ago. But, yeah, I guess 7 or 8 years ago that we were working on this song. It definitely has a special place for me, as all Night Demon songs do. But there's something really, really unique about this song and the whole story behind it.
Metal Blade Records presents the return of heavy metal legends Armored Saint with their 8th full-length album, Punching the Sky. A diverse, attitude-drenched collection, it's everything the band's faithful have come to expect from them while pushing their signature sound forward. Featuring 11 hard-hitting tracks available on double LP and Digipack CD. Right now, Metal Blade Records is giving all Night Demon Heavy Metal podcast listeners a 15% store-wide discount on all Metal Blade releases and merchandise, including this masterpiece from Armored Saint. Go to indiemerch.com/Metalblade Records and enter promo code NDPodcast at checkout. This store is loaded with tons of swag from some of the best bands in metal, like Midnight, Sirith Ungol, Merciful Fate, Angel Witch, Satan, and of course, the mighty Armored Saint. That's indiemerch.com/Metalblade Records, promo code NDPodcast. So march like a saint and take the last train home. Can you deliver?
So this song ended up as song number 9 on the Curse of the Damned album. But it has a bit more of a complicated history. It was almost a title track to an album that never saw the light of day. The album was going to be called Run for Your Life, and it was engineered and produced by Armand John Anthony. This was years before he would become the guitar player for Night Demon. As we go through the history of the band, you'll see how Armand was a big part of Night Demon's history from the very beginning, for years before he joined. Here's Jarvis to explain the Run for Your Life album sessions.
When Dusty joined the band in the fall of 2013, we had immediately started the process of the Curse of the Damned album. At this point, we only had 9 songs. What the plan was, I'll say that Screams in the Night and Mastermind had not yet been written. So the plan was to record the 9 songs and re-record the Chalice to be the 10th song on the album, which actually ended up as a bonus track on that record on I believe it was the European version. The US version, I think Road Racing, the Riot cover was the bonus track. But I believe, that was the idea. We were going to do a 10-song album, re-record the Chalice as song number 10. And at this point in time, Curse of the Damned, as the 10-song record, was actually titled Run for Your Life.
Oh yeah! This next song is up on your album. This song is the title track. This is Run for Your Life!
And I do believe that that's how the song had evolved from Run for Your Lives to Run for Your Life. And we thought that was a more fitting title. For some reason, the Run for Your Lives thing was kind of, I think that we didn't want to have such a generic thing there, especially since Riot already has 2 songs of that with the same title. But, whatever. It didn't matter. And, the whole cover concept of Curse of the Damned had not come about yet. And so we had actually had our friend Ryan Bartlett draw some really cool art that Hell's Headbangers Records put out as a T-shirt, as a very limited run. And the reason why we never made T-shirts of this ourselves is because there's so many colors in the print that no screen printer had enough, could really do it. And Hell's Headbangers had this kind of like digital printing press that they could do any amount of colors on a shirt, which was cool. But the art is really cool. It depicts a woman running away from kind of something that resembles Rocky, but it's basically like this reaper kind of devilish skull in the moon and a graveyard. She's running past some Celtic crosses, which has always been a part of the Night Demon symbolism since the EP. And it's just really cool art. And we dubbed that the Run for Your Life art. And originally, that could have easily been the album title, or I'm sorry, the album artwork, had the album been called Run for Your Life. We also contacted another old artist in Spain. I don't even know if this guy's still alive. I mean, he was pretty old at the time, and his daughter was kind of doing his business for him. But he had this old painted image from the 70s, and it's kind of this reaper character with his arms out. It kind of looked like Rocky, and he was kind of walking through this major city, and he was as tall as the buildings, like a Godzilla character or something, and people were just in herds on the ground just running away. And we thought, oh man, that's perfect, Run for Your Life. And it turned out that we could never do a deal with him because they had a term on the license of the art where they said we could only have it for 5 years, and that wouldn't really work out for the longevity of the record and for the record company. And for a band like Night Demon, or for any serious band really, once you have your album artwork, I mean, you want to have rights to use that for the album, at least in perpetuity. Once an album comes out, it becomes iconic in its own way, and it becomes a classic, and you have to keep that integrity. You can't have a license expire after 5 years and go, okay, well, we have to have a new cover now. That's not going to work. So it's funny how things work out like that, because I think Curse of the Damned ended up being such an iconic cover. Although it doesn't feature Rocky, oddly enough. I do think that if we would have secured the license for this other artwork, that we would have 100% used it for the cover, and this album would have been called Run for Your Life. It wasn't until early summer of 2014 that we had decided to change the album title once we had decided to go and re-record it. I think it needs to be said, this is something that I know we're going to dive into in much depth when we cover Curse of the Damned as a whole, as an album. But as we do these individual songs from Curse, I do think a lot of light needs to be shed on the fact that the Run for Your Life album was actually recorded over a period of 2 to 3 months with Armand at the helm. He was the engineer and co-produced the album. We recorded this at the captain's quarters. The band lineup was myself, Dusty Squires, and Brent Woodward. And Armand was the one who captured that. And we ended up recording the entire album to a metronome, to a click track.
We played those to a click track, and I was just getting acquainted with the band. I hadn't toured with them yet. It was really just kind of like the introduction, coming up with fills, figuring out my place in the band. When we did the demos for Run For Your Life, which we were calling the record Run For Your Life at the time, the quality of the music is very good. The recording's great. The sounds are amazing. Armand did a great job when he recorded that. And it made me comfortable with the band to do those demos at first because I know Armand's studio so well from being in a band with him in the past. So I was able to come in and really work well in that atmosphere. So that was really cool, but it just didn't have it yet.
I remember when we were recording it, the first time it was recorded, you'll hear the original recordings of this that I did here that were going to be the final tracks, were actually going to be the album Curse of the Damned. Well, no, it was called, I guess at the time, the title track was Run For Your Life. So this was the title track to the album at this point. At that point, there wasn't the songs Screams in the Night, and there was one other one that wasn't around yet at that time. So, Dusty came in on that original recording like almost as like a hired gun, really. He was in the band New Liberty with me before that, or right around that time. I think that was towards kind of the end of things with that band. And he was just kind of looking. I'd always brought him in on sessions in the studio, and they wanted to use him for these recordings. So I brought him in, and he just kind of like learned. I don't know how much practice he had beforehand, but not much. But he did a killer job with it.
Which at the end of the day, we just felt like it wasn't the right energy of Night Demon, but we spent some money on it and we spent a lot of time on it. And so when we went for our first European tour in 2014, and we were in Germany and we played it for the label, for Ollie Hahn over at SPV Records, he liked the songs, but he thought that it doesn't capture the spirit of Night Demon, and he was totally right. And that was no fault of Armand's. I look at this now as like, it's super polished, and there's a lot of tracks on there. There's a lot of layering on there. We really made a big record. I just think that the metronome, the click track really slowed us down as a band, and it's the spirit and the energy weren't there. But these are like the best demos you've ever heard in your life.
Then I do more than
So I definitely want to shine a bright light on those sessions and expose those tracks whenever talking or doing a deep dive on anything from Curse of the Damned. I think I would like to officially dub all of that the Run for Your Life sessions. I think that's the appropriate title for the 10 tracks recorded with Armand that would eventually become the material for our first full-length studio album, Curse of the Damned.
So I remember specifically when we were in Europe, Brent was just kind of like laying there one day and he was just thinking, and he said, you know, this demo or this record that we have, it's just not right. It doesn't feel right. The songs don't move enough and it seems stale and stagnant and boring. And at the time, I was really happy with the way it came out. But I'm the new guy in the band, you know? So it was like, I didn't have that attachment that he had or the vision. So, you know, he convinced us that we should go in and re-record it. And then when we went out and started touring, you know, and I got like 100 shows under my belt just about, then we went and re-recorded the Run for Your Life demos that became Curse of the Damned. And, you know, where the demos, we wanted it to be all tight and they were worried about timing. So we played to the click and, you know, did everything individually and kind of pieced it together. Where once we got on the road and started playing as a band together, the timing came naturally then. I have a pretty good sense of time from playing to a click track for so long that I have a pretty good internal meter of time. So we developed what the time was and what makes everybody feel comfortable. And when it was time to go and redo Curse of the Damned, we played it live together in the studio. And that's what gives it that record its magic. Even though the songs are a lot slower than what we play live, there is this magic there. You could tell that we were becoming a band at that point, and that we knew how to communicate without even really saying anything at that point.
Hey guys, Jarvis jumping in here. I want to tell you about Shadow Kingdom Records. Shadow Kingdom was the first domestic label to release Night Demon on CD. They put out the EP in 2013, and they also released the vinyl version of Live Darkness. Listen, you guys need to get your ass to the Shadow Kingdom Records store, okay? Right now, they're offering 10% off for all Night Demon Heavy Metal podcast listeners. Just go to the website, put in the code NIGHTDEMON10. That's Night Demon 10, all capital letters, Night Demon 10. No spaces. Put that promo code in upon checkout to get 10% off. Right now, guys, they have the Bloodstar 7-inch, which has sold over 1,500 copies, and these guys cannot hold on to it. So this next pressing, you want to get that before it goes out, okay? Also, SKR Compilation Volume 1. Guys, this is free on Bandcamp. They're giving it away for free. So not only are you going to go to shadowkingdomrecords.com and put in the code, all capital letters, no spaces, NightDemon10 upon checkout, you're also going to go to their Bandcamp site and get this compilation for free. You're going to hear tons of fantastic fucking heavy metal. If you love us, you're going to love this label. Check it out, shadowkingdomrecords.com. Put in the promo code NIGHTDEMON10 and receive 10% off of your entire order. Do it. So after our meeting with SPV Records in Germany on that first European tour, we really had decided to go back and re-record the album. It was a bit deflating because we had spent so much time and effort in the studio with Armand putting this record together. However, in hindsight, it was totally the right move. I mean, we had spent all that time touring Europe after that, playing those songs, and really got familiar with playing them. And that's one thing when you're making records, you haven't played the songs live most of the time. That's the case for most bands. So you don't really know the songs as well. So at this point, we were really primed. And the Run for Your Life album just ended up becoming like the best demo tape you've ever heard. And so we went back into this, when we came back that summer, we wrote Screams in the Night and Mastermind, and that really brought everything together. And that's how Curse of the Damned came to life. And Run for Your Life ends up being just a deep track on the album, not the title track, not the opening track, how it was supposed to be. We had gone to Bright Mountain up in Keene, California, and did the record with Roger Camaro from August 22nd to 30th, I believe. It was a week in August, I know that. And we did everything live in the same room, so you can hear bleeding through the tracks. I mean, we did obviously vocals later, and I think the guitar solos, but all the rhythm tracks and the drums were done in the same room. So it really had that live energy, and we didn't use a metronome or a click track, obviously.
I remember when we were playing it live at Bright Mountain Studios and Roger Camaro was recording us. I had my back to the booth, so when Roger was looking at us play, he could see the back of my head and he could watch me play from behind. Jarvis would have been to my right, Brent was to my left. And, you know, we were in there catching the vibe. We were playing these songs together. And we were creating the magic of what that record was going to be right there on the spot. And we were dialed in. We had our sounds. We got it going, and we were able to record.
And it's funny because listening to it now, I mean, God, we listen to that record and we think even the final version that came out, we're like, wow, that we think the tempos are even kind of tamed and kind of slow at that point. I mean, the speed that we play those songs live now, it's just crazy. It's sometimes difficult for me to listen to the songs on Curse of the Damned because of that. I think we were just kind of, I mean, as much as we were more familiar with the material, much more familiar and much more confident, I still think at that stage in our career, we had some nervousness. And I'd known Roger for years, so that wasn't the issue. And he had actually recorded the band prior to that. He recorded the bonus tracks on the expanded version of the EP. He recorded Axe Crazy, the Jaguar cover, and Lightning to the Nations, the Diamond Head cover. So there was no personnel issues there. I think it was just, there was a lot riding on that. I mean, we had to come home after what we felt was a victorious European outing, our first tour out there, and, you know, just to have our record label tell us that we need to redo the album. I mean, so there was a lot of pressure on our shoulders, but at the end of the day, it's a classic record.
We cut the track, and it came out great. That's a good version of that song that comes on the Curse of the Damned record.
They come out and play. They're not human anymore.
I don't remember it being anything that was too difficult. I think we cut it maybe 2 or 3 times before the keeper. So it wasn't anything painstaking or anything like that. I just remember having to really get the vibe when we did the demos, and then when it was time to cut the record, I'd already been playing the song for quite a while. I believe we played it a lot more when we were touring earlier on. So it just kind of came together. You know, who's to say that the record wouldn't have done as well, but who's to say that it wouldn't have done well? Who knows? Eventually those demos will come out. I don't know if they're already out now for the subscribers or not, but people get a chance to hear them and compare.
So this song, Run For Your Life, was almost the lead track and the title track of a Night Demon album. And like Dusty says, these versions recorded by Armand, they're really cool versions to listen to when you compare them to the final versions that you hear on Curse of the Damned. So here's a very short clip of both versions. The first clip is from the Run For Your Life sessions, and the second clip is from the final album version. And you can kind of hear what the guys were talking about when they say the first version, it lacks an energy that the band kind of captured by playing live in the studio together in the final version. So you can hear in that second clip, that version kind of has this urgency to it that the first one doesn't. And aside from the different feels that the versions have, there's also a few little details in there. Here is a kind of cool example. The version from the Run For Your Life sessions. Before the second verse, when the lyrics say, "I hear a shot ring out," there's a literal gunshot in the mix. And that's something that's only suggested in the re-recorded version. So I think they made the right choice here by suggesting the gunshot without actually adding a sound effect of a gunshot. It is cool to hear in the original version, though. And another difference that I'll point out is the backing vocals on the chorus. They feel a little bit more of a kind of a gang vocal feel than on the final album version. So those background vocals you hear where they sing "For Your Life," they were performed by the band Ex Mortis. And you might have heard of Ex Mortis before. They're another California-based metal band. They often played with Night Demon in Night Demon's early days. So that was Ex Mortis. They actually played with Night Demon at Night Demon's EP release party, July 9th, 2013. So the whole record was re-recorded. These first sessions, they'll all be available eventually on nightdemon.net for subscribers, starting with this track, which is up there now. Scrapping an almost completed record and redoing it, it's a brave move, but it just shows that Night Demon, they don't compromise. They need the album to be 100%, and that's all they would settle for. And as the band progresses and moves forward, they won't accept anything less.
It's pretty cool to see how we've evolved over the years, because we're always striving to get better. Even in that instance where we had a finished record, but it just didn't have it. So we went in after we had been a band for a while and we re-recorded it, and we wrote Mastermind and Screams in the Night. And, we've been evolving ever since. You can see the steps we took for Darkness. You can see the steps that we took for Live Darkness. You can see the steps that we took for the singles we released. And you're going to see the steps that we took once again when the new record comes out.
That new album again, Year of the Demon. So stay tuned for more details about that. So we're going to wrap it up here for this week. This is one of those songs that when I started interviewing the guys in Night Demon, it turned out to have a really deep backstory. And we're going to pick it up again next week when we dig into the real-life events that inspired the lyrics to this song.
And he had his hands in his pockets, and he walked up, turned and faced it, pulled a gun out of his pocket, and just start firing into the place. I at this point, I'm looking for John and Brent because I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Where are my guys? Are they okay?
Yeah, a real near-death experience that inspired the lyrics to this one. That's going to be next week. Be sure to check out the bonus content in the subscriber section on nightdemon.net, where we have full versions of the original demos with John, Crear, Jarvis, and Brent, the version of Run For Your Life from the abandoned Run For Your Life sessions, live footage from a few different live performances of this song. That's all at nightdemon.net. Until next time, this is Nesbitt, signing off.
Thanks for listening to the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast. Head over to nightdemon.net, click on the subscriber tab, and sign up to access exclusive weekly bonus content. If you would like to donate to support the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast, you can do so through PayPal at paypal.me/nightdemonmetal. Additionally, if you have not already done so, please subscribe, like, rate, and review the show on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Unbearable suspense that keeps you on the edge of an abyss of terror.
Take a cult film odyssey into Cinemadness with Cinematic Void. Based in Los Angeles, Cinematic Void is a film series that specializes in horror and exploitation films. Currently, we are hosting Cinematic Void Up All Night in the Cinemadness movie, a monthly virtual screening series, as well as the Cinematic Void podcast, where we dive deeper into the world of cult cinema. You can find Cinematic Void on the World Wide Web at cinematicvoid.com, as well as Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And if you like what we do, you can support Cinematic Void by joining our Patreon. Until next time, see you in the void.